Racism permeates, and it's not the same anymore because we've seen, really dark-skinned actresses and dark-skinned actors. But you got to understand, if Obama was my complexion, he wouldn't have been president. You know what I'm saying? I still get followed around stores. I mean, I ride first class. I was in first class one time and this guy kicked my seat. And I stood up and I said, would you have kicked my seat if I was a white boy?
At the height of his powers, Clifton Powell was that rare thing in Hollywood, a face everyone recognized, a name whispered with respect by those in the know, and a charisma so bulletproof even his villains felt strangely likable. He was Pinky to the Friday faithful, a chameleon for Oscar hopefuls, the guy whose walk-on in Ray or Menace to Society could change the temperature in the room. But if he wasn't getting awards, he was still getting work, nearly 300 credits running the table from prestige dramas to gonzo comedies, always just this side of household fame. Industry vets claimed he had that old school, take the part, take the check, make it count ethic. Up-and-comers took notes, starstruck, every time he dropped a monologue. Yet for all the resilience Powell showed battling colorism and cold shoulders behind the scenes, being told by one white network that he was so dark he's gonna scare everybody, nothing prepared him for what would hit in 2011.
I did a TV series, which I am not gonna say, but some of the Teamsters were Klan members. This is real. It's real. I don't take any from anybody that's racist, sexist, or anything, period.
We remember the shock, don't we? That summer in New Orleans, Powell rolling through Harrah's Casino like any other night, just another veteran actor passing time between gigs, barely noticed by the tourist crowd. The first news stories trickled out slow, ugly, clinical. Powell accused of a violent hotel room encounter. A cocktail waitress he'd known for years suddenly filing suit. The kind of lurid legal drama that turns even seasoned fans into armchair judges. Suddenly, the whole of Hollywood seemed to freeze. Calls unanswered, projects evaporating, friends whispering in hallways about optics. It was a familiar nightmare for Black actors, the industry that couldn't remember his name last week suddenly unable to forget it now. Before anyone even read the complaint, the narrative was out. Clifton Powell, respected actor, now branded with a word so radioactive the actual verdict hardly mattered. He pushed back, of course. That's what you do when you know the walls are closing in, when the PR sharks and tabloid ghouls are sniffing for blood. Powell's team fired off denials with the kind of formal outrage Hollywood publicists save for only the messiest scandals. Mr. Powell absolutely denies his false accusations and plans on pursuing all legal remedies available to him against his accuser, went the official word. But who was listening? Powell claimed, "She got mad because I wouldn't give her any money. I've never hurt anyone. I was never arrested. Never." Even as the case limped through civil court, criminal charges going nowhere, no physical evidence, a cloud of he said, she said, the social media verdict was immediate, vicious, and, it turns out, irreversible.
So her, who's African and French, and a white producer whose name I can't remember, said, "Mr. Powell, you are our first choice. If you don't get this role, it's not because we didn't fight for you." But that's happened to me on a McDonald's commercial. One of my friends was the producer and the agency, and the agency thought I was just too dark.
The script Hollywood follows for these stories is older than most of its stars. The moment an allegation lands, innocence becomes an afterthought. Actors go from essential to untouchable before the first headline cools. Powell found himself not just out of work, but out of the conversation entirely. A silent blacklist, no paperwork, no public statement, just the phone that never rings. He would later tell interviewers about agents dropping him with a single sentence, studios going another way, and the surreal realization that legal vindication means nothing when the audience has already voted. We saw a man who'd been blocked from major movies for being too Black for the role suddenly discover that in the entertainment business, there is always a way to be too much of something.
And I think what I would love the general public to understand is before you make a comment about my work and how many bad guys I play, go research, do your research. I play Dr. Martin Luther King and Selma Lord Selma. I play doctors, I play pastors. I just did BMF where I played a pastor. I played a pastor on Black Lightning. I did an episode of House.
Then came the real rumors, the ones you can't shake, even if you win in court. A former road manager told us Powell was too slick for his own good, hinting at whispered payoffs, claiming he'd slipped cash to hush up witnesses and bury evidence. There was talk that the case's collapse was less about a lack of proof and more about who got paid, and how quickly. 3 industry veterans insisted it was an open secret. Mason insisted it was an open secret that powerful producers had swept ugly facts under the rug just to keep the franchise money flowing. The label hasn't commented, of course, but the damage was done. Suddenly, Powell's innocence felt as much a matter of negotiation as law. Was he acquitted because the courts found him blameless? Or because Hollywood did what it always does, protect its own until it's convenient to do otherwise? If you were looking for a script that delivered answers, you came to the wrong studio.
You know that Harvey Weinstein came to the door with his robe open. But these girls came to his room at 1 o'clock in the morning. So what was Harvey thinking? What were they thinking? And they got mad because he just came right at him. If you was my friend and Harvey come to the door and I'm coaching you from behind, I'm saying, hey, Harvey, you know damn well you ain't supposed to have your robe open, Harvey.
And if all that weren't enough, there was the courtroom detail that spun the entire saga into tabloid myth. According to the complaint, the most chilling moment of the alleged encounter was not the violence itself, but a line that stopped even Powell's defenders in their tracks. He told her he wanted to be called Monique, not just a name, but a twisted, inexplicable request that instantly became late-night punchline and true crime fixation. Why would Powell, a man so meticulously in control of his public image, demand such a thing? Was this a sign of psychological fracture, a private role play gone horribly wrong, or the fevered invention of an accuser out for cash? No one, not even the judge, seemed able to make sense of it. Some in Powell's circle called it fabrication. Others just shook their heads and stopped answering calls altogether.
So finally we would go in and I did it, you know? I'm standing in the middle of the room, I said, now it doesn't matter what happens now. We've got some difficult times ahead. Like anybody, I would like to. So they said, you know what? We're gonna figure it out. You're gonna be king. And then Disney didn't want to hire me.
Off of what?
Off the fact that I wasn't a name. So then they wanted to fire me. So I told.
We watched the gossip cycle feed on that single detail, turning a legal battle into a kind of performance art. Fans who'd grown up quoting Pinky and Friday suddenly couldn't decide if Powell was a tragic scapegoat or a secret monster, the punchline or the headline. Even Powell's old interviews, stories about being fired for taking another one of those little black movies, feuds with directors, warnings to young actors about the cruelty of the business, took on a darker tone. Every old conflict, every rumor of difficult behavior became another piece of evidence in the shadow trial that never quite ended. If anything, Powell's own outspokenness, his refusal to play the grateful underdog, only made it easier for the industry to wash its hands. The most disturbing part is how quickly the world moved on. Powell still pops up in indie films and streaming series, always working, always grinding, but the big studios never really called again. When asked about the fallout, he described it as the worst time of my life. And you can almost hear the echo of a verdict rendered, not by judge or jury, but by a business that never forgives the sin of making it look bad. The silent blacklist, the industry's final sentence, turned out to be more devastating than anything handed down in court. And all the while, that detail, call me Monique, just sits there, unexplained, a piece of the puzzle that doesn't quite fit, but refuses to disappear. As new rumors keep swirling about who knew what, who got paid, and what other secrets might be waiting just off screen, we're left wondering just how deep this rabbit hole really goes, and what Hollywood's relentless hunger for scandal will turn up next.
But it's one thing to position yourself, it's another thing to say to the top. You can't, I'm telling you, there's no such thing to the top. You can't. I'm gonna
Plug yourself into a nice break. How
No,
about that?
you can position yourself. Just back in Marilyn Monroe's days, if you saw the TV series Hollywood, everybody that hasn't seen it,
Right.
go watch it.
Netflix.
You can marry up.
What stings most isn't just the vanishing act of Clifton Powell's career, it's the brazen, almost smug hypocrisy of the town that banished him. Hollywood's memory is notoriously selective. Some actors get swept up in accusations of far darker offenses, only to reappear in the next blockbuster, trophies on their mantles and handlers eager to massage their image back to prime time. We've all watched stars bounce from the witness stand straight to the red carpet, but when Powell's name hit the headlines, the drawbridge snapped shut, the phone lines went cold, and not even his most loyal fans could pull him back from the quicksand of public outrage. Why was Powell, a household face in black cinema, so easily dropped when others, often white, always bankable, found forgiveness and fresh deals? It's a question we keep returning to because the answer sits right at the heart of Hollywood's gleaming, rotten double standard.
If you don't have any talent, at some point you're gonna hit a wall. There's an article, and I can't think of the white girl's name, but she slept with all the heads of the couple of heads.
Marilyn Monroe?
No, not Marilyn Monroe. But no. This is a true story. And she was dealing with some of the big executives.
If we pull back the lens, the haunting parallels between Powell's scandal and the quiet purges that swept through pre-Me Too Hollywood become impossible to ignore. The entertainment world has always been a battlefield where reputation can be destroyed long before the first gavel drops. Well before hashtags and protest marches, careers evaporated in a fog of accusations, innuendo, and selective outrage. This case landed in that gray zone, too late for silence, too early for solidarity, leaving him in a kind of cultural no man's land. The industry had not yet found its voice to demand systemic change, but it already knew how to smother inconvenient talent in the name of protecting the brand. For every Weinstein who faced the music years later, there are a dozen Powells whose names were quietly scrubbed from the call sheets and award ballots. Powell's downfall reads almost like a blueprint for the reckonings that would sweep Hollywood a few years later. The sudden disappearance from projects, the stony silence from former allies, the rumors whispered just loudly enough to wound but never quite enough to confirm. These were the industry's tools long before anyone tweeted a hashtag. But Powell's experience comes with an extra edge, the weight of racial bias baked into every stage of the process. In a business where Black actors have always had to fight twice as hard for half the recognition, being first to fall isn't a badge of courage, it's a warning shot. His erasure didn't spark a movement, but it did leave scars. Reminders that, when the time came to believe victims, the playing field was never even. Powell was forced to carry the stigma without the benefit of collective outrage or the promise of a comeback tour.
I just never quit, okay? So when we talk about adversity, if this is your passion, don't quit.
So your way up the top is all right then.
Shut
Let's
up,
get to that.
shut up.
That's
No,
the point I'm trying to make.
that's what I'm saying. Because I want to clean that adversity thing up because it's very important about what choices people make to think they're going to make it.
The question that lingers is as unsettling as it is overdue. How many other performers, especially those from marginalized backgrounds, were erased from the script before the world was finally ready to pay attention? Powell's story may look like an isolated tragedy, but in truth it sits atop a mountain of hidden casualties, the casualties of a system that polices morality for the camera while quietly choosing who gets to survive scandal. In a twisted sense, Powell was both ahead of his time and left behind by it, a harbinger of the messy justice and merciless public opinion that would soon become the norm. For those who still believe in redemption or due process, his case is a sobering reminder that the industry's reckoning has always had a double edge, cutting deepest for those who were never fully welcome to begin with.
It's just like when you say, how'd you overcome adversity? My formula is prayer and meditation and faith and don't quit, period. I'll give you, Ralph Farquhar said to me, I don't get happy when I'm up and I don't get too sad when I'm down. I didn't, and the reason I went back and I give, when I'm gonna do an evening with Clifton Powell, is give everybody the whole picture.
And if you believe the Whisper Network, there's a chilling footnote. Powell's so-called Monique obsession wasn't just a one-time detail from a single courtroom complaint. Multiple sources, former assistants, casting staff, even one director who swears he's seen Powell flip the switch, say that the nickname Monique has floated around set gossip for years. Some claim it was a code word, a punchline behind closed doors, a secret the industry tolerated as long as Powell was profitable and problems stayed off the set. As soon as the allegation surfaced, the mood shifted. Overnight, the story wasn't about whether Powell had crossed a line, but about whether everyone had known for years and simply chosen to ignore it until the PR calculus changed. The old saying goes, Hollywood buries its secrets under mountains of money, but when the money dries up, suddenly all those secrets become evidence.
Let me say this. That's a very complicated question.
This nigga
There's no denying the psychological price tag of the scandal. In the interviews Powell has managed to land since, he sometimes seems like a man still climbing out of a burning house. He has talked about lost roles, former friends vanishing, and waking up each morning waiting for a call that never comes. There's an edge to his voice, a crackle of desperation beneath the bravado, especially when he pivots to naming the names he blames for his exile. It's not just his infamous rant about his agent firing him for doing another one of those little black movies, or his decision to take public shots at Spike Lee's business practices. I don't dislike Spike Lee. I dislike some of his business practices, he insisted, calling them facts he won't take back. We can't help but wonder if Powell's sudden outspokenness, his urge to air every grudge and slight, is part vengeance, part survival? Does he believe he's finally free to say what he really thinks? Or is this the last stand of a man who knows the industry's mercy has run out? The Monique conspiracy lingers, a shadow Powell can't outrun. Some sources suggest the nickname was ammunition, held in reserve by rivals, waiting for just the right scandal to detonate his reputation. Others, including a producer who worked with Powell in the 2000s, say that Hollywood's power brokers made a collective decision. Better to sacrifice Powell than risk scrutiny falling on bigger, more lucrative names. Was he the fall guy for a system that feeds on scapegoats? Or was there always something darker simmering beneath his public persona? Even now, the silence from top producers and former co-stars is deafening. One agent speaking anonymously called the final sentence a message from the industry. If they can erase Clifton, they can erase anybody.
No, so, and then I had to really go and own it. And then the next day they brought me back, and me and Russ, and that didn't even make the airways.
Wow.
Ain't that crazy? So anyway, they cleared it up.
And let's be real, Hollywood never misses a chance to rewrite history in real time. Powell's fans are still out there flooding comment sections, demanding to know why their icon has become invisible. They've watched his story be twisted into cautionary tale, punchline, and urban legend, sometimes all in the same breath. Powell, for his part, tries to reframe the narrative, painting himself as both victim and survivor. He has given motivational talks, posted support for up-and-coming actors, and never misses a chance to remind everyone that the business is built to chew people up. When he rails against colorism and racism, the countless roles denied for being too black, the open snubs and veiled threats, we can't help but see the scars beneath the swagger. And yet there's an undeniable whiff of calculation in how Powell has handled the fallout. His attacks on powerful names, his insistence that the real problem is the system, not his own actions. Are these genuine calls for reform, or a desperate effort to redirect the heat? For every supporter who calls him brave, there's a skeptic who says Powell is playing to the crowd, using outrage as camouflage. The rumors about payoffs and witness intimidation have never quite faded. Every time Powell denounces corruption, another anonymous voice pipes up, wondering if he's projecting his own guilt onto the industry that cast him out.
No, I was just talking and then it got serious.
Maybe that's why the final sentence has stuck. Powell didn't just lose gigs, he lost the benefit of the doubt, the goodwill built up over decades. It's as if the very traits that made him a survivor, the hustle, the charm, the unapologetic confidence, were suddenly flipped and held up as evidence of his untrustworthiness. When Hollywood decides someone is guilty, there's no appeal, no parole, just a slow fade into trivia night answers and streaming reruns. The fact that Powell still works in indie productions and smaller projects only underscores the depth of his exile. He hasn't been forgiven, only forgotten. Still, even now, the story refuses to close. Rumors keep bubbling up about sealed court filings, new witnesses, maybe even a tell-all in the works. One tabloid columnist claims Powell is considering a podcast to finally tell his side. Another points to fresh civil court activity and hints at even stranger twists waiting to surface. It's impossible to separate truth from spin, fact from strategy, not when Hollywood has mastered the art of turning real people into serialized drama for profit. And so, the cautionary tale of Clifton Powell hangs over the business like a storm warning. He wasn't the first to be destroyed by public opinion, and he won't be the last. If there's one lesson from Powell's downfall, it's that no one, no matter how many acting credits, no matter how loyal the fans, is safe when the narrative turns. Will new evidence finally clear his name, or are we just one headline away from another shocking reversal? Could there be more to the Monique rumors than anyone ever dared to imagine? We want to know what you think. Was Clifton Powell unfairly blacklisted, or was Hollywood's judgment inevitable? Is there more to this saga than meets the eye, or is this just another case of the industry eating its own? Drop your theories and hottest takes in the comments. Don't forget to hit subscribe for the wildest, most unfiltered Hollywood gossip on YouTube. Until next time, keep your secrets close and your popcorn closer.